No, I can't hear you. Oh, wait. I think I know why. Okay, try again.
You cannot hear me?
Yeah, I can now. It was on my end.
Oh.
I forgot Scott was here last week, so I actually had the microphone plugged in instead of doing the Skype thing.
Gotcha. Rookie mistake, Jonathan.
I know.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Trying to get Andrew on here.
Stewie, there is no audio right now, but in 20 seconds there will be audio that I just said right now.
We could do this. Oh, it's just a sting. That's funny.
Good song. Okay, that's annoying. Not you. Anything else?
Hi, Andrew. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Hey, there you are.
Hey.
Hey, Andrew, this is Hal.
Hi, Hal.
This is Jonathan.
Howdy.
Hi, Jonathan. Howdy.
Do you have
Very
video
good.
you can send us?
Let me, turn on video here.
Cool. Let me get that.
So the way... The wrong window...
Hang on just a second.
Okay. You can't see that.
What? What can I not say?
Oh, he had something on the whiteboard back there that he...
How's that?
That's better. If we weren't supposed to see that, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to... I don't have the lights on here. Do you want me to turn the lights on, or is the...
It's okay the way it is. It's up to you. It's a little dark, but it's, it's an audio podcast.
Right.
If you want to see what the viewers will see, Andrew, then go to live.powerscripting.net.
Okay.
And there's basically a YouTube channel and a chat room, and we will most of the people that interact with us, we've got a core group who join us in the chat room every show, and but most of the people that will receive this will be through the audio podcast. That's the pub. That's what we publish. That's the product. But we have a lot of fun with the live stream, and it's great because we get to interact with you and the guests and the listeners all at the same time.
Cool.
And they will occasionally pitch us questions, so on and so forth.
Okay. Sounds very cool.
Yes. I'm excited, by the way, to talk to you. I'm very excited about this product. I'm very much looking forward to hearing about it.
So this is just free form. You guys ask questions. We get questions from various people and roll with it.
Exactly.
It is very
exactly
free-form.
right.
It is not.
All right.
There are no scripts here.
Yes, there is. There's lots of scripts.
Lots of scripts.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Different kind of scripts.
yeah. I mean, we don't do much canned as far as
No, we don't do canned.
Okay. Cool. Should be fun.
Yeah. So right now, I think Jonathan is tweaking audio and things like that. Jonathan and I actually are we're in the same town. but the podcast is recorded from our respective offices / studios. Okay, got a good shot for the Facebook
You guys are
wall.
Based out of Atlanta?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. You are in Redmond, I assume.
Yes, correct.
How's the weather?
It's been really nice, but today's been pretty overcast all day. No rain.
Yeah. I was
We
there.
had lots of 70 and 80 degree days. So
It was overcast in Redmond.
yes, it's actually been very nice. This is unusual for the past few weeks.
Yeah, I was there 2 weeks ago in a town called Union, Washington. You know where that is?
I do not know where that is. Where is that?
It's near some water.
Okay.
Let's see, how else can I describe it? What's that city that's to the south of Seattle?
Tacoma.
The next big city.
Tacoma.
Tacoma?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I remember we went kind of through past Tacoma, and then we hung a left or a right. We went west. It's like an hour and a half from Seattle. That much I could tell you for sure.
I'm pulling up the map. Let's see.
There was a resort thingy that we were in for an offsite hackathon and meeting and stuff. It was pretty cool. But yeah, Union is on some body of water. What is this? Maybe some Lake Union, or I don't know what you call it. A ford, a sound. These are. See, we don't actually have any real bodies of water in Georgia to speak of. We do have.
We have a coast. What are you talking about?
We don't have anything complex like these sound. Like I don't know what sound is. Okay, I mean we have rivers and we have streams.
I think we had.
And we have the coast.
Does the intercoastal waterway go past Georgia?
Yeah.
I think it does.
No,
Are you
it
sure?
doesn't. Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, so it's on Hood Canal, it looks like. Does that sound familiar? No. What is that waterway? Yeah, all right. I see where it is.
Yeah. So let me check the map.
That's
here
a nice
see if
area.
I lied about the Everett. Tacoma. Yeah, I think we did go.
Tacoma. Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, we did. We did go through Tacoma. I remember this now. We could have gone the more direct route, but that that involved ferries and things like that.
Right.
Anyway, it was a nice area.
Yes, it is.
So, Jonathan, how are things looking on your end?
I think we're good to go. Everything sounds good. The video's all set up.
Okay.
In the right podcast. There we go.
I assume we're actually streaming. I forgot to start the streaming before. Usually somebody in the chat room will say, "Hey."
I think we really are streaming.
Yeah, according to
All right,
YouTube,
cool.
our stream status is okay.
So how do I find out who's in the chat room in here? Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Okay, I see it now. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you to everybody who is with us in the chat room. Hopefully you guys will help keep us honest and keep the conversation going. But I don't think we're going to have any problem tonight because, like I said, Andrew, I am super interested in the topic here. So very much looking forward to it. So with that, I guess we're ready to go.
One last thing before we start.
Oh, show notes.
I'm going to disappear for a little while, and then I'll come back.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that. Do we need to do the double ender recording, you think, Jonathan?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm going to come back down.
Testing. Okay. All right. Then 1 second. Let me do the show notes, which I forgot about. What episode number are we?
This is 303.
Sweet. Okay. Where's... Almost done. And share the show notes with Jonathan. Okay. Mike Robbins in the chat room. All right. And let me clear out the show notes. I should have done this before. At least I know what the question will be, Jonathan.
Yeah.
That one should be pretty straightforward, but don't want to spoil it. Okay, cool. I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. So, all right, we're good. So if I definitely need to turn off the sound. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn off the sound that this thing is making it. Slack is channel notification preferences, desktop. There we go. That'll work. Okay, cool. All right. Tonight on the PowerScripting podcast, we are pleased to have with us Andrew Mason from Microsoft. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we've got some really cool stuff, new stuff from Microsoft. Really new, really important. Talking about Nano server. Before we get into that, which I know that is your thing, that is your baby, we will learn all about it. Before we do that, Andrew, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time to how you got started in IT.
I got started in IT. I got my first job at Microsoft back in the day supporting, on the phones, supporting MS-DOS 5.0.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I did some IT stuff at some computer labs and things in college, and interviewed at Microsoft because that sounded like a cool place to work, and got hired as a support engineer.
Awesome. So you've been, that's a long time.
That's a long time, yes. 91.
DOS 5, wow.
Yes. Yeah. So I was from there. I went into training for the support org. That was around the time NT was first starting. So I did the original internal training to get the support organization ready for NT 3.1, and then I worked in support training through, I guess, NT 4, and then I went over to the group that does the external courseware, the Microsoft official curriculum. I think it's still called that. Did that for a couple of releases of NT and Windows Server. Then I moved to a group called, Patterns and Practices. They do the prescriptive architecture guides. So basically, we would document how you would put. That was when they were still doing IT things. I think they're all developer focused now. But that was we would document how we'd have all these great case studies about customer X bought all these cool products and created this cool solution. But it was all sort of the sales pitch. We would take that, build it out in a lab, and document it step by step, and then post the guides online. So like the first hosted Exchange guide back in, I want to say 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. Worked on that one, and some things around Windows Server security. And then I guess it was 2004, I moved over to the Windows Server group, and I've been here ever since. So I actually came over right when Server Core was getting started. So I've been working on something related to Nano Server for a little over 10 years now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, Nano's new, but it's spiritually, it's not new at all. I mean, it's we're talking about old ideas applied to to a new to a different place.
Yes, sort of the evolution of Server Core.
So where was PowerShell at the time that Server Core started and you got involved with that?
PowerShell was still
10 years ago. Yeah.
Internal project that Jeffrey was running around getting going.
Okay, gotcha.
And I remember some meetings back in the day because we did not have .NET. And of course, PowerShell is heavily based upon .NET. And so we were trying to figure out what we could do. And if you remember back to Server 2008, Server Core did not have shipped without any .NET support, and so no PowerShell support. In 2008 R2, we got a subset of .NET 2 and 3.5 in, and then we're able to include PowerShell.
And that was
which really helped with the manageability.
As I recall.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that you had been around quite so long in this. I mean, because we've talked the podcast. We've been around for a while too. And Jonathan and I and a lot of our listeners and our friends have been following PowerShell since the beginning, but I never thought about it in terms of how long Server Core and the ideas for that had been around. I don't think we ever talked to anybody about that. So, yeah, what was your involvement with Server Core, and then we'll eventually work up into Nano.
Sure. So I was the first program manager on the team. We did not have. Actually, I was the first person on the team. Come to think of it, we were basically borrowing some resources from other teams to do a lot of the factoring work and putting the pieces together for Server Core. And so I was the first person on the team, and over time added some test resources and developer, and spent a lot of time running around talking to teams, convincing them to do work for me.
So what was Server Core supposed to be? I mean, some of your earliest planning meetings. Can you sum it up really simply?
Server Core was supposed to be a lightweight server installation option that ran your infrastructure roles, so like Active Directory, file server, things like that.
So
obviously,
how long from the time that you started that planning until you had a first product that shipped?
Let's see. I guess. Well, we started in 2004, and the first version shipped was Server 2008.
Wow.
So I remember when I joined the server org, that was sort of when the Longhorn Vista work was going on, and so some of the organization was already working on what ended up becoming Server 2008, and some of the org was working on 2003 R2 at the time.
So, did you have any proving to do in order to to build the case for Server Core, or was that already done by the time that you were put there to make it happen?
A little of both. I mean, there was some proving done that we needed something like this to be competitive and to reduce the patching pain, because nobody wants to patch components that are installed on their servers that they're never using. But then convincing a lot of the teams that own the roles to do the work to remove some of their GUI dependencies and other dependencies so they would run on Server Core took quite a bit of convincing.
Right.
For some teams. Other teams got the idea right away. But a lot of teams back at that point were wondering who would ever install a Windows Server machine without Windows on it.
Yeah, and there's
Right.
there's a lot of things buried in Windows that you might not touch often, but when you do, you realize that there's no way to do this without a GUI.
Right.
And I imagine it took a long time for you guys to really nail that down and understand what hitting all those places meant.
Yes, and even today there's some things that are easier to RDP into Server Core for. So we've taken that feedback to heart and have done a bunch of things with Nano Server to help make that better.
So, do you have any metrics that you're able to share in terms of usage of Server Core or Windows Server with the GUI turned off?
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of great data on that, just because those are installation options and configuration settings. So we don't have sales data and things like that. And SQUIM data, the telemetry reporting from server, a lot of servers aren't opted into that. So the little bit of data we do get is hard to say whether it's representative or not.
Okay, as opposed to consumer stuff, where I imagine your percentage for opt-in would be a lot greater?
Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. So, so how far did you get on the initial vision of Server Core? And at some point, someone said that we have to go further. We must make it smaller.
Yes.
Tell me about those discussions.
Well, I would say we achieved the original vision, which was basically a smaller server operating system that ran your infrastructure and reduced the number of patches required. But at the time that we created Server Core, it's a very different world from the data center world of today. It was very enterprise focused. There were lots of management tools out there, and so the early builds of Server Core were actually pretty small. But over time, as we started working with customers and trying to get them to deploy it and what the requirements are to use it, we got a lot of feedback that it had to integrate into their existing management infrastructure. they're using a third-party tool to do backup, a third-party tool to do, monitoring and things like that. So that pulled a whole bunch of functionality into Server Core. Whereas today, we're going down this cloud path, much larger deployments, much more rapid deployment. People need a smaller operating system option for that. That's more focused on exactly what they want to run. They don't need the Swiss Army knife kind of thing. And so that's how we sort of shifted and decided to go down the Nano server path. And Server Core, we also took a different approach to building Server Core versus Nano server. So with Server Core, we started with the full Windows server and pulled pieces out. With Nano server, we actually started at the bottom and have started building up from the bottom, from the kernel.
Yeah, so that would have been a new. I mean, that feels like a new product to me.
Yes.
I mean, it's not called Windows. You guys intentionally took that word out. How did that feel?
Felt fine to me. But I'm not the one that needed all the convincing.
Were people awake at night thinking, "Oh my God, this is some new server operating system, but it's not Windows. What are we doing?"
No, I don't think anybody's
quite
really
so
had
dramatic.
that. No, I think Server Core laid the foundation for it. People are more accustomed to the concept now.
So, what kind of time frames are we talking about in terms of Nano server and when that team really got started?
So Nano server actually started. Let me see here. Probably about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
2 to 3 years ago.
Version 3.
Something along those lines.
Yep. Yeah, I relate dates back to PowerShell versions. I'm not sure if you noticed.
Okay, all right.
That's how we are in the podcast.
Fair enough.
So what was changing in the world, inside Microsoft, in IT, outside of IT, maybe in when thinking about things like DevOps? What were some of these motions that made things bubble up to the point that you guys had to do something that is pretty extreme when you think about it, of making this new server operating system, starting from the kernel?
I would say a lot of it's really come from, just trying to do cloud deployments, both with the cloud platform solution, the thing we released last October with you can buy a rack of hardware with server and system center all installed for your private cloud deployment. And much of the learning we've gotten from Azure and other hosters, running Windows Server. Is in that model you mentioned DevOps. It's very much that the cows versus pets model, where something goes wrong with the machine, you're just going to redeploy it. Well, you need a smaller operating system. You want that taking less bandwidth. Copying your images over. You don't want to have to reboot to patch things and take down your hosted environment for a patch Tuesday as often, and those sorts of things. You want that network capacity available for handling your customers, not for handling your internal infrastructure to support those customers.
So I've got some numbers that you guys released. The initial blog post announcing Nano server, coming. And this was the title of Microsoft announces Nano server for modern apps and cloud. And we'll put links to the show notes for people who are listening later. You've got a couple numbers in here that I will read here. 93% lower VHD size. So is that a current number? Or was that early before release? Or tell us what that 93% number means. In terms of, what does it bring?
Pull up the calculator and see if it's still 93%.
I'm not asking for number of kilobytes,
yes.
but
so right now So was that comparing to Server Core, or was that comparing to full server?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't remember from the blog post. It's been a few months. Anyway.
It doesn't really say. It says compared to server, actually.
Okay. So the numbers I remember off the top of my head are Server Core VHD today is about 6.5 gigabytes or so. A Nano server VHD is 410 megabytes.
Wow. That is
so just
tiny.
Comparing, much smaller, taking up a lot fewer resources on your system. If you're following the cow model, it's a lot less to copy over to the server if you want to redeploy. So, some people are even looking at, when I have to patch it, just redeploy an image versus actually, do online servicing.
Oh man, that is like a different world. That's kind of funny and crazy. So
But when you get that small, that's something that you can do.
yeah, really.
Yep.
Man. Okay, so a couple other numbers here. We see 92% fewer critical bulletins. So
Yes.
I guess this one's pretty simple. Your attack surface is smaller because there's less code in it, and most of that
Right.
is related to the GUI.
Correct. A lot of that's related to the GUI. There's obviously, 410 megabytes. There's a lot less there. That's a lot less that has to be surfaced or serviced. So with Nano Server, we analyzed that's based on all the patches released during 2014. So Nano Server would have had 3 critical bulletins. I think Server Core was 8 or 9, and Full Server was 23.
Wow.
See,
Well, that's cool, though.
Nice
just
reduction
even
there.
pointing to Server Core.
Yeah, Server
Yeah.
Core definitely has a benefit there, but Nano Server takes it even smaller. And one of the things we are working with the security team at Microsoft to see if we can get that down. We have a goal of trying to have no more than 2 critical bulletins and 2 reboots a year.
Okay, so now that's something. Okay, that's cool. So is rebooting as big of a deal when you're when you've got so few, when the package is so small? I mean, rebooting it can't take long.
No,
Honestly.
it does not. It does not. That's correct.
Yeah.
So we actually have an old tower machine in somebody's office where we have it booting in 15 seconds.
Wow.
We've been doing some analysis and think there are a few things we can optimize and get that going even faster.
That's awesome. So 80% fewer reboots is another number. So aside from patching, what else contributes to that? Or is that basically
it's really basically patching.
Okay.
So the number of the number of reboots during 2014, based on Nano Server, would have been 3, Server Core 6, and Full Server 11. So that's 11 months, 6 months, and 3 months. And again, we want to get that down to 2 or fewer for Nano Server.
Gotcha. Well, hey, it's good to have a goal. So of the things that you took out, or rather that you didn't put in, were there some hard choice? What were some of the hardest choices?
The hardest choices.
I mean, the one thing that jumps out at me is the lack of a local console.
Yes. So that was a hard choice, and there's been a lot of debate on that because back in the early days, we actually had a test console that lots of teams internally were using for things that we've taken out because that's sort of the easy way out. You're not going to make all the remote management work if you have that backdoor in. So we decided to make the hard choice that is going to be fully remotely managed, no local interactive logon or RDP into it. So one of the things we have been getting since we've released the build with at Ignite, Nano Server is available in technical preview too. We got a lot of feedback both at Ignite and from customers since then that really there are situations where they need access to the system. So today, if networking goes awry, they use their BMC or something to connect in remotely, or KVM, and they can access what would normally be on the screen. So what we're actually looking at is providing as an optional piece, like an emergency management console. So you can install this in your Nano Server images if you want, and it would give you some basic functionality. So sort of like the sconfig script that's available in Server Core. It would be a menu system with some limited options. You can't break out of it or run anything you wanted to, any tool you wanted. But you could troubleshoot some of your networking and look at the status of the machine and things like that.
Okay, gotcha. So I've got a couple of questions in the chat room that I wanted to hit.
So I had another hard choice that might be an important topic to touch on. So one of the things that we did not include was user mode plug and play. So for Nano Server today, you do have to put the drivers in your image that you need for your system. So we have kernel mode plug and play. So as long as the driver's in the image, it will pick it up. But it's not going to go out and detect all your hardware and go try and download drivers and things like that. So you do have to customize the image with the set of drivers you need.
So which drivers okay. Can you go a little more depth into the difference there between the kernel mode and the user mode? What are the drivers that we do have to care about?
So you would want to care mostly about your networking drivers and your storage drivers.
Okay, gotcha. So video card,
so-
I mean, is
Video
irrelevant.
cards, yeah, is irrelevant. Sound cards are relevant. Wireless network adapters are relevant.
Gotcha.
But
Okay,
we did
so-
we do have a package of all the server core drivers. So for test purposes, if you want to just put that full package in, your image is going to be a little larger. But when it boots up, as long as your hardware doesn't require any non-inbox drivers, then you'll just work with that package.
Okay, I gotcha. So, any other hard choices or things that you got some pushback internally or externally?
I would say those are probably the big ones. I mean, there's always tough choices, and we're still working on Nano server, so there are still things we're working on trying to get running on it, and we may change what's in the base a little bit to support some things. But we are trying to hold a hard line.
Right. Let me go to a couple of the questions in the chat room. Then I've got a few other directions I want to go. Let me see here. Why don't you rattle off some of the most important differences between server core and Nano server?
I would say the biggest one is obviously the fact that you cannot log on locally or RDP into the box. So it is full remote management. So you have to use PowerShell remoting or remotable MMC or some of the tools we're working on to connect up remotely. I don't know if you saw the announcement a couple weeks ago, SSH is coming to Windows. So that will be available on Nano server as well. Right?
That was a surprise. I did not hear about that one. Yeah, or I didn't see that one coming. I heard about it. I didn't see it coming.
Right. Yep. So that's coming. So that will be another option for connecting up remotely to Nano server. I would say another big difference is, even though server core is sort of referred to as this headless or GUI-less system, anybody that's used it, you can run Notepad, you can run Task Manager. There is still some GUI functionality in there. So GDI, Shell32, and some of those other pieces that allow you to run those things are in server core. Those tend to get patched more often than some other things. So none of those are in Nano server either. So that's why we don't have any sort of local logon or anything.
Gotcha.
Because all WinLogon and putting a command prompt in a window, all that stuff has dependencies on those pieces.
Gotcha. Well, what about a text mode console? I mean, could you have Throwback Thursday is today? We could have had a DOS window.
Bring back MS-DOS 5.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could even bump the version a little bit.
Maybe. No, we're trying to hold a hard line on what's available and move everything to remote management. I don't know if you've heard some of Jeffrey's comments lately about how GUIs on servers are poison. You want to run those all remotely, take advantage of all the fancy capabilities on your client machine, but have it all under the covers do remoting. And one of the benefits of that is you separate the business logic from the GUI. Many cases when there's a GUI tool that you can only run locally, there's a lot of business logic tied into that. So that means you can't do scripting or automation with it.
That is a good point.
Right. So we want to force that, get the GUIs off the machine so you have that separation, and so you have the scripting and automation capabilities so you can do a lot of those things at scale.
Gotcha. So a couple more questions from the chat room here. Will Nano server ever be an installation option like server core, or how's the distribution work?
That's an interesting question. So it is an installation option in that it's included as part of standard data center and the Azure stack that was announced at Ignite.
Okay.
It does not show up in setup as an option like you see with server core. And the reason we don't show it in setup is the driver thing I mentioned before. If you were to run through setup and have not customized the WIM image with your drivers and you let setup copy the WIM over, you would basically have just installed a brick because you wouldn't have any drivers, so the machine wouldn't be able to boot or be accessible in the network. Right.
Nice.
So we have not put it in setup for that reason. It is a separate folder on the media. So if you download the ISO for Technical Preview 2, you'll see a Nano Server folder. And then there's the Nano Server WIM and a link off to the deployment guide, as well as a subfolder with all the packages for Hyper-V clustering and things like that. Now, if we get people up to speed enough on Nano Server that they understand they have to deploy the drivers or maybe customize setup down the road or something to, give you a warning, have you added drivers yet or not? Perhaps would be something that we could list in setup. But right now, the plan is it will stay separate.
So how are third parties doing in terms of supporting what you guys are doing and providing their drivers and the humongous breadth of ISVs with software that goes on top? You've got the other hardware vendors with their management agents and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it's a giant space. Tell us about that.
It is a giant space. We've been reaching out to all the ISVs and hardware vendors to get them started on moving their pieces over. Some are farther along than others, as you might expect, but we're doing a lot to educate them, and we're actually doing some stuff that's very different from what we did with Server Core to help make that process better. So with Server Core, we didn't really have an SDK or any sort of developer experience. We put a list of supported APIs up on MSDN, and as a developer, you kind of had to figure out, okay, I'm going to run this on Server Core, so I need to make sure I only use APIs from this list. With Nano Server, we're actually have Nano Server integrated into the SDK. So when the Win10 client ships, when the SDK goes out, you'll see Nano Server covered in there. We have a Visual Studio template that will be up in the gallery soon, or at least around the time the SDK ships. And so if you download that, when you go to start a new app, create a new app, you can actually pick Nano Server as one of your targets. And then in IntelliSense, when you start typing an API, it's only going to show you the APIs that are supported. If you load some code from something that exists already, it will show you error squiggles for any APIs that are used in that code that aren't available in Nano Server.
Gotcha. So let's I want to drill down a little bit into the APIs that are supported.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of .NET things that deal with the UI, but
Right.
Yeah, is it easy to summarize what is supported and what isn't?
It's not that easy to summarize, unfortunately. It's a subset of Win32, and it's the core CLR. So it is not the full .NET framework. So it is the subset that's being worked on that ASP.NET V5 will run on top of. Now,
so what if I had a straight console application? Win32 console application. Would that work?
A straight Win32 console application should work, yes. So there is another package you'll see in the packages folder in the Technical Preview 2 called reverse forwarders, and we've been adding more of those. But essentially what those do is, if you're familiar with working with the Windows API set, there's a variety of different APIs you can use to access something in the registry or access a file or, access a different folder. And so some of those live at the low level, which are in Nano Server, and others of those are actually in shell DLLs. It's like shell 32, shell WAPI.
Right.
Some of those things I said we left out. But what the reverse forwarders do is we'll actually let you, if you're calling one of those APIs, it will forward it onto the version that exists in Nano Server. So you can install the reverse forwarder package on Nano Server and actually be able to run a lot of existing code without having to recompile it for Nano Server. And so we've actually gotten a lot of the common app frameworks and tools from the open source world running on top of Nano Server. So like we have PHP, Ruby, Node.js, Go, Redis, Nginx, Chef, all running on top of Nano Server with the reverse forwarder package installed. Interesting.
So, okay, so the reverse forwarder, is it a thing that you have to do anything with, or is it just a thing that I mean, is this something that you have to iterate on and patch itself?
You should not have to patch those. They are basically fake versions of the DLLs. So if your code is linked to those, when your code starts up and tries to call those APIs, it'll find the DLL, but what will actually execute is the version down at the lower level.
Okay. I think I understand now. All right, so it's a little bit like app virtualization, I suppose. Is that a decent analogy?
That's a decent analogy. It's a little shim.
Okay, gotcha.
So
all right, cool.
Those aren't installed by default, but it is a package that you can add because we're trying to go with the sort of the just enough OS model, where the base of Nano server will stay the same size, and then based on what you run on top of it, you will add packages to build it up to the size needed. So unlike Server Core, Hyper-V runs on Nano server today. It also runs on Server Core, but as we talked about, there's a big size difference between those. There's a lot of code installed even in Server Core that Hyper-V doesn't need. So on Nano server, Hyper-V will always run on that small base. Now, as we add more roles and features and things to it, some of those will have some other dependencies. We'll make those packages. So when you install that other role or feature, you can install its dependencies, and your OS size will be larger, but it doesn't impact the roles and features that can run at a smaller level.
So is there a difference between what Hyper-V can do when running on Nano versus Server Core?
Not everything's fully functional on Nano server in the current builds, but the goal by the time we ship is it will be 100% identical. So
when you are running I was going to say Windows, when you're in a Microsoft shop and you're doing virtualization, I can't think of a reason not to use Nano.
I can't think of one either. Okay,
all right. So we're clear then. Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right, that is your goal, is for there not to be a reason. I mean, because in the case of virtualization, you're never going to touch and hopefully ever need to touch that local OS. The whole point is everything on top.
It should be small and locked down, and you not have to worry about it, and not have to patch or reboot it as much as possible.
Yep. Let me see. I've got a bunch of questions in the chat room actually to pick from. So thanks everybody in the chat room. Love you guys. No 32-bit support. I don't think anybody's going to cry over that.
Right. 64-bit only.
Yep. No MSI support. That one is a little surprising to me for a moment anyway. And then I remembered how complex actually MSI is.
Right.
And my impression, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, my impression is that you guys were happy to not be supporting MSIs.
Yes, MSI has a lot of dependencies, and with custom actions, I mean, you can pretty much do anything to the system. And with Nano server being as locked down as it is and not having any of the GUI pieces, it would have been pretty hard to get enough of it there that any existing MSI would actually work.
So the deployment story for software on Nano server is, this is a trick question because I know what your answer will be.
Oh, okay. What's my answer going to be?
DSC.
I was going to say yes. So today in current with Technical Preview 2, you could use, if you have the binaries, you can xcopy deploy, you can use PowerShell, you can use DSC once we have DSC on Nano server. We are also working on a new installer. So you will be able to package up, and it will do your common actions of copying over files, setting registry keys, registering services, registering ETW events, COM, etc. We'll support uninstall and inventory, and also work offline and online. So that's something we have in the works.
So why a new installer? And is the scope of this beyond Nano server?
So the new installer we want to make available in Server Core and full server as well, so that ISVs can create one installer that they can use across the server installation options. And the reason for the new installer is so DSC uses providers, and so it will install MSIs and things like that. It doesn't actually have an installation engine itself.
Right.
So we want to provide a solution there. And so with Nano server, you mentioned earlier, wanting to put custom agents on there. Hardware vendors have agents, things like that. We want to make it easy for people to be able to get those on there. And ultimately, we want to, use Nano Server as the basis for your born in the cloud application. So anything sort of going in that DevOps direction and built for the modern server data center.
Gotcha. So let me see. Got a lot of questions. What to pick from here? Okay, so tell me, you're installing Nano Server. What is that install time experience? And when it comes to configuring the network, kind of how do you do this part?
Okay, so install time, speed, and things. So
speed is fast, right?
Speed is fast. So we actually have Nano Server on that tower machine I was mentioning earlier. You can go from booting for the first time to fully running in 40 seconds. And
wow.
Same machine, server core takes about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We did a test with WDS on a couple old tower machines with a 100 megabit switch. So not your speedy data center network or data center. Nano Server took 3 minutes, and same hardware, server core was 19 minutes.
Cool.
So bit of a performance difference there. And one of the ways we were able to accomplish some of this is we've taken some of the common configuration settings that normally are done online and moved them to an offline section of the unattend file. So you can set your administrator password, your computer name, you can domain join all in the offline section of the unattend file with Nano Server. And so basically if you set that, when you start up Nano Server, it reads those settings, applies them, and you're up and running. You don't get that second reboot you get with server and sysprep today.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
So,
and so as far as the configuration goes, we do support unattend. Obviously, because Nano Server is so small, it's a subset of unattend. The things that are applicable. Everything else would get ignored. And you can also, we have a blog post. There's you can use a setupcomplete.cmd file, and so you can actually run scripts post setup. To do further configuration if you want to of something that might not be available in unattend.
Okay, gotcha. So, I was going to ask you something, and then I started to look up. I do this all the time. I should pay attention during my podcast. I really should. So, maybe you mentioned this, but I think I was not focusing on the same thing. So I want to make sure that I get this clear. You said WDS. Does that mean Pixie Boot?
Yes.
In effect? Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
All right, so I can see that being a pretty excellent way to deploy new bare metal Nano servers. That seems like it would make a lot of sense. As far as building out the unattend scripts, how do you do that? I mean, are you hand editing XML, or are there good tools for this that you'd recommend?
So they keep renaming the toolkit. It used to be the Windows Deployment Kit. I think it's now the Advanced Installation Kit, the AIK.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. WAIK. Yes. Yeah, they did rename it a few times, didn't they?
Right. Yes. So if you search on unattend files on Microsoft.com or TechNet, it should direct you to that. And there's actually a GUI tool in there that you can use to configure your unattend files.
So does the version of that bump each time that an operating system is released? So there's going to be a new one for Windows 10 and so on? Correct.
Yes, there's a new version each release. And the other thing we've done is actually we just this week posted a PowerShell script, as a matter of fact, to help you customize your Nano Server image for deployment. Because a lot of feedback we got was we posted this deployment guide, but there's a lot of steps in it, and it's hard to say which pieces I really want to do depending on what I'm trying to test out. So we now have a PowerShell script that will let you pick and choose what roles and features you want and put the image together for you, as well as help you create an unattend file. So there's some content up there on our Nano Server blog about unattends as well.
I think I just found it. Post by Rafat.
Yes.
PowerShell script to build your Nano Server image.
That's the one.
Excellent. I will put that in the chat room right now for folks to follow along.
Perfect.
All right. So let's see, picking some more questions here. What about non-Intel chipsets? Things like Raspberry Pi? going to be supporting them?
I'm not aware of any plans to support those right now. We're basically supporting the same chipsets as full-on server.
Okay, cool. I've got a question here, and this came from thinking in the context of virtualization and containers, which I suppose I should get an extended answer to that one. But in terms of how much load that it takes to run your server OS and your applications and density, like how much can you pack into a single server? I had heard recently that when moving from full virtualization to containers, that someone was able to see a 5-to-1 improvement in density. I don't know anything about that number yet. I need to pressure them a little bit, but and we haven't even started talking about containers. But
right,
what do you think of that Nano server is going to do in terms of supporting higher density levels of computing?
So Nano servers should definitely give you some benefits there. I mean, like the kernel memory in use is about a third the size of a server core installation. So there will be more resources available. It sort of all depends on how well your role or your app running on top of Nano server takes advantage of that additional hardware. I don't have detailed numbers now because we've just started doing some of the performance analysis. So we should have something in the next 6 months or so. But it is something we're looking into, and we're also looking at server today requires a minimum of 512 megabytes of RAM. We're looking to see if we can lower that for a Nano server installation.
That's interesting. So, so where does Nano fit in terms of containers? And bearing in mind, I am going to be having on, who is it we're going to have? I think Ben Armstrong.
Okay.
I think he committed to coming on the show. So,
he's the expert, and we'll have all the answers.
Episode. Awesome. But so tell me about where you guys intersect with containers, what it means to you, how it affects what Nano server is providing, and so forth.
Okay, so because we have Hyper-V, Nano server will be a great container host as well as a virtual machine host for both the Windows and the Hyper-V containers. The Nano server is also going to be available as a base OS in a container, so it can be your container OS as well for both types of containers, the Hyper-V and the Windows containers.
Now I need to go see that movie again. Help me out, chat room. The one with the dreams. Shoot.
Inception.
Thank
Inception,
you.
yes.
Inception.
Right.
That was a horrible pop culture reference because I couldn't come up with the name of the movie.
I knew what you were talking about, but I couldn't remember the name either.
Did you already talk about the difference between Hyper-V containers and Windows containers?
We have not, and
I would love to know what the difference is.
I'm not the expert there. You should probably save that question for Ben.
Oh, okay, sure.
Not a problem. And we've had him on the show once before. He was a great guest. It was funny too. I want to say that we were talking at a high level, and we were about 20 minutes into the podcast or 30 minutes into the podcast, and we started to go off on a tangent, and it was something really, really, really low level, and it was like, he stopped himself. It was like, is this boring you? Do you want me to go on? And we're like, no, please go on. We want to hear this. And he could have geeked out about this one thing, but so we appreciate that. Let's see. So another question just came in from the chat room. The hardware that you are running Windows Server on today, will people have any problems running server on it tomorrow? Nano server?
No. So Nano server supports the same drivers, the same driver stack. So if you have a driver for a piece of hardware that runs Windows Server, that same driver will work on Nano server.
It sounds like you're going to be able to run Nano server on your watch.
If it supports Windows Server, you can run Nano server.
I got a Microsoft Band. Can it run on that?
No, not yet.
How much RAM does it have? Not quite enough.
Yeah, so sort of back to the installer question you had earlier. One of the reasons we want to do the installer is also for drivers, because a lot of times when you get a third-party driver, you get an MSI, and that installs some tools as well as installing the driver. Well, today what you would have to do is install that MSI on another machine or extract out the contents of the MSI to get the driver and the INF file. As long as you have those, you can use DISM to inject that driver.
Mhm.
But with the Nano server installer, we want to be able to allow the driver vendor to also be able to install their tools.
So presumably this would support remote installation,
Yes.
mechanisms. It would, okay, have to.
Yes.
So tell us about PowerShell support in Nano server. Is it any different than what I expect on a server, other than obviously the included modules?
So the included modules will be a subset. If you install the TP2 build, there are some modules and commandlets there. We are continuing to add more, so you'll see more as we have more preview releases. I would say the biggest difference is it's what the PowerShell team has referred to as core PowerShell. So it is a subset of PowerShell. All the remoting's the consistent. It supports all the commandlet types like sim and C#, but not every commandlet will be there. The one difference that when the PowerShell team talks about it, that they point out is that it cannot initiate a workflow. It can be part of a workflow, but you would have to kick that off on another system.
Oh, because that's relying on parts of the .NET framework that won't exist on Nano server.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So
DSC works. You can run a DSC configuration against a Nano server. And
DSC is in progress of being ported over. It is not there in the current builds, but it is being worked on.
So will there be caveats for DSC once that's done?
I am not aware of any today, but they're not done yet. So
well, there'll be Windows features and stuff that Nano server won't support. So I mean, I guess you could consider that. You're going to be constrained by the limitations of the server, obviously.
Correct. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be able to use DSC to deploy an MSI to it, for example.
Makes sense. All right.
Can you do an enter PS session?
You can, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's the sneaky trick, because a lot of people, I have the feeling that a lot of people still don't know that enter PS session exists. I could be wrong on that. Jonathan, Andrew, what do you think? I think that's still a secret to a lot of people.
Yes, yeah, I think so. It would have been a secret to a lot of people at my former company, not so much at my current company.
Say maybe 50-50.
Yeah.
So
actually, that'll be the route. You'll still be able to do that, or you can do that now with Nano.
You can do that now, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you go to channel 9, there's a Nano server series up there where we've posted a bunch of video demos, including some with PowerShell.
Oh, cool.
And so one of them is we put a Nano server VM using Bring Your Own VHD up in Azure, and we have enter PS session into our Nano server VM running in Azure and do some remote management there.
Very cool. Yeah, I just typed in Nano over at channel 9, and there's a bunch.
I think there's like 19 or so now.
Wow, that's great.
Yes.
I love
so we show
channel
some
9.
of the deployment stuff, show the speed of like the WDS deployment I mentioned earlier. There's several Nano server ones. There's one showing, several PowerShell on Nano server ones. There's a couple that show Chef running on Nano server, again, using those reverse forwarders I mentioned earlier.
So what would you say is are some of the biggest challenges that people have to overcome when they are thinking about deploying Nano server? Let's assume that they know a little about PowerShell. What is the next ramp that they have to start learning?
I would say that if they know some about PowerShell, I think they're probably in pretty good shape. I would say that the next ramp is really just being comfortable doing everything remotely and not relying on RDP. I think we've actually spoiled administrators by making it so easy to remotely connect into a machine and run GUI tools locally.
All right.
But I think somebody with a good basis in PowerShell is going to be able to just rock on Nano server pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm excited, but I've not tried yet. But I have a plan. I have a plan for something that I want to run in Nano server, and I won't give it away yet because it's at my employer and there's nothing official, so I don't want to go there.
Okay.
But
all right.
I'm excited about trying new things in it. Are there types of software that you really firmly expect that will be in Nano server first? Very quick out the gate. Whether that's in Microsoft and out versus software that are what are the low hanging fruit there? Not in terms of actual names of software packages, but in terms of categories of software.
As far as categories goes, I would say it's probably web apps. So things running in IIS or other web servers. Mm-hmm. Like one of the video demos, the chef demo actually shows Nginx running a web server on top of Nano server. We have WordPress running with the reverse forwarders. So things like that, I think, will become pretty common pretty quickly. Really, I think it's more things you'll see more rapidly on Nano server are going to be more of the modern sort of apps written to the DevOps model with rapid deployment, separation of dependencies, things that run at scale and don't have a lot of UI requirements.
So do you think that people are going to deploy and adopt Nano server any more quickly than server core adoption, or the same, or not?
I expect it to be more quickly, mainly because we're doing a lot of work to jumpstart a lot of the tools and agents and things on top of Nano server, and we have that SDK to help with that process. And I also think that a lot of data centers have changed the way they do things. Again, back to the pets versus cattle kind of model. It used to be back when server core first started, every server was a special thing that was taken care of, whereas today, people are just rebuilding servers constantly, redeploying things. And I think Nano server fits into that very nicely.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground. Jonathan, did you have any other questions for Andrew? I'm going to come with the joke. I'm sorry. Joke in the chat room. Okay. There was a question, Andrew. I wonder if there will be any Nano MVPs. And of course, Dave says they're going to be 90% smaller than normal MVPs.
They'll require less food, less sleep.
There you go. We haven't determined that yet, whether it'll be an MVP for Nano server or not. It could very well be. We don't know yet.
But if there are, then be sure to take advantage of all the joke opportunities.
Will do.
I do have a question, actually. Now, based on what we've seen with adoption of server core, but with the changes with the way that data centers are being run now, what do you think the adoption is going to be like for Nano server? Do you think people are going to flock to it? Do you think it's going to be something that's going to take a few years to really ramp up? Or do you think it's just going to be, the revolution starts now and get on the train, or you're going to get left behind?
I'm ready, John.
Well, being the Nano server PM, I certainly hope people flock to it. But I will say that I do think anybody... we started Nano server sort of focused on the cloud data center. So I think anybody running in that model is really going to flock to it based on the patching benefits and the benefits of being able to deploy much faster when they have to add capacity or, rebuild a server because of an issue. And, we're also making it available as a container-based package and starting to push it as the server platform of the future. So I think the apps may take a little longer just because people have to, adjust their target for what they're writing their apps to. But I think we'll see that pick up pretty quickly as well with containers.
Yeah, I would think that would be a big benefit for developers to be able to write to a container rather than an operating system in the same way.
Right. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking briefly about containers. I mentioned that Nano server will be one of the base options as your container OS. And we got into Inception, and I forgot to mention that the other option will be server core. So you won't be able to do full server and have the GUI and all that in a container. So I think that will also help push people towards, I need to separate my business logic from my management and make things remotable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Right.
Jinx.
I'm looking at the waveform. I started before you did.
All right, fine. You win this one. So, is there any public guidance yet? And I apologize, I missed Ignite. I was actually slated to attend, and then I had to skip it last minute. Is there any public guidance as to what server roles are going to be supported? I mean, Hyper-V, you said already.
Right.
IIS is a no-brainer. I don't recall. Did you say Active Directory? What about other server platforms?
I did not say Active Directory. So right now in current builds, we have Hyper-V, Scale-Out File Server, and clustering. We are working on getting some more roles on there. I'm not sure when they'll be available, but the two that we're working hard on right now are IIS and DNS. We did get a lot of requests at Ignite, and there is now also a user voice site for Windows Server. And there's a Nano Server section up there if you guys have any suggestions. And Active Directory is a very popular one up there. So we're trying to figure out what order to keep tackling the roles in, but we do want to move all the roles that make sense for your modern data center environment that run on Server Core today. We want to get all those onto Nano Server.
Does Nano Server still have WMI? Does it still interact
Nano
that
Server,
way?
Yes, Nano Server has WMI, both V1 and V2.
Okay.
Yeah, I just found the link for that user voice with the Nano Server category, so we will definitely push people to go there. So, are you guys using this instead of Connect? I don't. Did Server ever have a Connect site?
Server has a Connect site, but I don't know that everybody has access to that.
Okay, so now we're talking
I think the server one might have only been like tapped customers.
Mm-hmm.
But this is open to everybody, so this is a way to provide feedback, and it consolidates versus people leaving comments on blog posts or things in TechNet forums and stuff like that. We've got one place that everybody can.
I'm sorry. Did you already talk about the HTML5 management interface?
We did not talk about that.
Oh.
Okay, Jeffrey Snover mentioned that one time when he was on the show, but I didn't quite follow. It sounded like it was kind of like maybe an interface similar to Azure, like the Azure portal.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the remote server management tools, and there's actually a video of that up on Channel 9, and so that does run in the Azure portal, so it uses that framework. But essentially, we have heard all the feedback about things that aren't easy to do remotely with Server Core that you still need to RDP into a Server Core machine to do. And so we've created a whole new set of tools that basically give you remotable versions of those things that you could only do locally or didn't work so well remotely in Server Core. And so we have Task Manager in there now, we have Event Viewer, we have Device Manager, we have a lot of your initial configuration kind of control panel tasks, so you can rename the computer, you can join a domain or move to a work group, you can change your IP config, all those sorts of things, all through a web-based interface. So, you can use it from whatever client machine, your phone, your tablets, etc.
So it's actually hosted on the Nano server. So you're just going to or is it?
It's not. No, it's not hosted on the Nano server. So basically what you would have to do is either stand up another machine or a VM or a container that hosts this, and then you would use that to connect up to all your Nano server machines.
So it'd be similar to installing the RSAT tools today, only you're basically installing, or does it require IIS? I guess it would.
It does require IIS, yes. Okay. So you would install one instance of this, sort of like your management box, and then your admins connect up to that and go out to all the machines.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we're also looking at making that available as a hosted service up in Azure, so you could connect up through that and connect in, so you wouldn't have to host it locally and use your resources on that.
Does that work against down-level clients? Will it work against 2012 R2, et cetera?
It has some... We're still working through that. It has some limited functionality, but basically way it works is it's all based on PowerShell and WMI.
Okay.
So anything it does is now scriptable. So again, separating the business logic from the GUI tool.
Okay.
So we've added some new WMI providers. So like the device management stuff is all based on a new device management WMI provider that's added in the new version of Server.
So is it extensible? Does that mean I can like put a PowerShell script in it that my administrators can use and say, hit this script to do whatever on this remote machine?
We're still working out the extensibility story. We don't have that just yet.
Okay.
But it does have a PowerShell control in there, so it does the enter PS section for you.
Oh, that's cool.
And it actually has show commands, so you can see what parameters are available on the command that you've started to type in the text window. It's pretty cool. You should watch the video.
Oh, cool. So you can do that from your phone or whatever device. That's nice.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to keep adding tools to that. You'll see more and more of the inbox tools moving to that sort of framework and being available in that way. And hopefully someday we'll be able to retire MMC.
That would be a good thing.
That would be a good thing. Yes, and the nice thing about this is it's all consistent controls. So if any tool wants to show your, say, CPU performance, there's one control that shows CPU performance, so you get consistency across the tool set versus, MMC had different ways to get to different things based on the feature being managed.
So is there going to be an item in Windows Azure for Nano Server?
You mean a gallery option?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
We are working on trying to make that happen. So for the images in the gallery, Azure put some agents and things in there to do provisioning and stuff. So we're working on making those run on top of Nano Server. You can today bring your own VHD. So if you build a Nano Server VHD, you can upload it into Azure and it will run and is remotely manageable.
So do they have kind of generic container support in Azure yet, where you can just say, instead of worrying about whatever my container is running on, just say I need some containers?
They don't have the new Windows Server container support. I don't know what they have on the Linux side.
Okay.
I will let you know in a minute. No, that's the thing I do during the podcast. Inevitably, at some point during the podcast, I am logging on to my Azure account. So I've deployed things during the podcast, and
or he's loading modules, or
exactly.
Installing packages with the package manager.
Yeah, that is a thing that I do. I see Core OS in there now. That's actually interesting. That wasn't there last time. Anyway, cool. Let me see. I've got links in the show notes for the remote server management tools. I did find that Channel 9 video you were referring to. What about things like SQL Server? Can you share anything there?
We are working with a variety of teams inside Microsoft. I sort of mentioned the ISVs earlier. We're working to get sort of all the System Center agents running on Nano Server, so like VMM and SCOM being the top priority ones there. We are talking to the SQL Server team. They're very interested in running on top of Nano Server, but I don't have any timelines or anything to share. But it's definitely something that we would like to get.
Yeah, whenever I ask Jeffrey Snover questions like that, he always says something to the effect of, well, that's their story to tell.
There you go.
So I didn't expect anything different. But you never know. I mean, you guys like to share things sometimes. So, yes. I like going to user voice, and I can sort by top. So the ones that are voted highest. Any comments on the ones that are in here? We talked about Active Directory services. Nano Server console to show or change network information.
So I did mention that one earlier.
You did. You did.
That is, hang on, let me go and sort and see what the latest stuff is. That is the sort of emergency management thing. We do have something in the works for that.
Okay, cool. And a couple of the rest of these here we've also mentioned as well. SQL Server.
Right.
Diskless Nano Server Pixie Boot.
So the quick start guide was my next one on the list. So we do have that post now with the PowerShell script to help you put the image together more easily. Gotcha. The diskless Nano server. So this is one where we've gotten some requests to run on SSD, or not SSDs, SDs. There are a lot of servers you can buy today that have SD slots built into the motherboard. And so people would love to be able to run their OS from that and then have all the disks in the machine available for, their virtual machines or whatever they happen to be running on the machine. So it's something we're investigating, but no commitment at this time. I think that the big thing there is around performance and paging and things. Not really specific to Nano server.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm actually really all of a sudden a fan of you guys using user voice, because I'm seeing just paging through this, I'm seeing interaction here. For example, there's a post from Ned Pyle on the server team replying to one of these comments. That's not my experience with Connect has been great sometimes, but it usually takes a long time before you hear any feedback from Microsoft. So kudos, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes. Thank you. Good. Glad to hear it's liked.
All right, let me go back to the chat room. Anything else in here, Jonathan? Oh, there's a lot. Let's see. Oh, can you use OneGet on Nano? So I think the way that I would want to hear you answer this is that your new installer will be supported by OneGet as a provider.
Yes, that is the plan, and the plan is to have OneGet there. It's not in current builds. Again, that's one of those things we're still working on factoring.
Cool. All right, cool. I have nothing else. Jonathan, what about you?
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right, then we just have one more question for you, Andrew. This is the question that everyone who comes on the podcast has to answer this. If you could be a superhero or have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, interesting. There are an awful lot of superheroes to pick from.
You don't know of a lot of superheroes to pick from. It doesn't have to be an actual superhero. We've had lots of different kinds of answers to this over the years.
All right.
Could be a hero of yours in any kind.
Okay. Actually, I guess I'll go with Superman. Love to be Superman, to defeat the bad guys and save the world.
That is a noble and worthy goal. Superman's a fairly popular choice.
Is he?
I think Batman is probably number one, Jonathan. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was close the last time we pulled numbers on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys should have a graph on your website.
We should.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we keep meaning to think about it often.
One of those things, if only we had more free time, right?
Hey, wait a second. We've got an IT pro evangelist in town, Jonathan.
Huh.
We're working with Tommy Patterson lately. He's doing some skunk work projects related to the podcast. So we'll have to think about that. Maybe he can help us with something like that. Anyway, thank you very much, Andrew. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know about you, but I like doing these types of engagements, and I love the breakout sessions, and I've watched some of the ones that you did, and the one with Jeffrey and all that stuff. But this format is different, just the quick back and forth. I think it's awesome. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Sure, happy to. When we get closer to being done, if you want to catch up again on Nano Server, happy to chat again.
All right, and it was hilarious with the way that we were introduced. I will just say that.
Getting volunteered by my manager.
Yes. You were instructed to come on the show. That was first for us.
Yeah, we all thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, this is great. I'm happy to do these things. I love doing this sort of thing.
So if anybody out in our audience wants some practice with convert from string data, you could run that against the feed and pull data back and see if you could parse out that information for us. That'd be a cool script for someone to do as an exercise.
We do have all the superheroes in the show notes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
could be done.
That'd be cool. Could be done.
Just a text parsing exercise. Cool. Well, Thanks, Andrew. And I guess we'll definitely have you on when you've got some news to share about Nano Server.
Sounds good. Thanks again for having me.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
You too.
All right. Good show. I was really happy to that one out. And the next one that I am excited to be doing will be the container show.
Oh, yes. That will be cool.
So while I've got you on the phone here and everybody here listening, let me see where my email to Ben Armstrong is. Because he did say that he could show for us. Yep. Okay, so let's see. June 25th. So how are you for next week?
Next week?
Yeah, Allie. Yeah, the 25th. Is that going to be a good day?
I think, yeah, it should be okay.
All right.
There's
then
BBS next week, but I'm not. Everybody else in my family will be very busy that week and tired in the evening, so they'll be probably asleep before the podcast starts.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, then I already got Ben penciled in for next week, so I'll go ahead and send him an invite, and hopefully he will confirm.
Yeah, and we need to reschedule Tobias because it didn't work out with him.
Oh, yeah.
While you were gone. But it was great because Scott Moss was here.
I need to go back and listen to that.
At my house. I haven't posted it yet. I'm like 2 shows behind posting. That's okay. Now I'm 3 shows behind. I mean, it's sad, but...
If it makes you feel any better, I never launched my podcast, and I've got a bunch of episodes recorded.
Oh, gosh.
I'm still thinking how I want to do that, but...
Right.
Anyway. All right, well, cool. I'm glad that we'll talk to everybody next week, and we'll have the container show. So this is going to be the one.
So the container show is next week.
Yes.
Awesome.
Week. Assuming he confirms, which he did. He did say that day was clear for him a few weeks ago when I asked him.
Okay.
So assuming it is still clear, then I'll let you know. That will be a good one because containers are a big thing.
Yeah.
Lately. Very cool. Now I have to catch up on what have you guys been doing in the chat room. Yeah, so I'm glad we got a lot of really good answers from Andrew tonight, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening back to all the stuff.
Yeah, I think you probably missed the part where he talked about the installer.
Yeah.
And this was something that was news to me, and nobody else in the chat room had heard of it either. And he said that they're coming out with a new installer, a simplified installer that can be used for example, for things like drivers.
Huh.
They'll ship a provider for it in 1GIT as well. And it will be supported across all the versions of server.
Whoa.
But it will be the only one that will work on Nano.
Huh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. What else did we learn? He said working on DSC. It's not done yet. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, but that was a good show. He said that all the hardware that supports Windows Server today, you'll be able to run that Nano server on it, no problem, because it's the same driver base.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's plenty of good stuff. So you've got a nice evening planned?
Yeah, I've got to head over to the data center in a little while.
So is it...
Which I've never actually been in. I've never been in the data center.
What?
So, yeah.
What do you mean you've never been in the data center?
I've never been in the data center. I've been there a year, and I've never been in the data center.
I mean, sure, I didn't have to go often. I think I might have gone maybe twice when I was there, and one of them was the tour, But, yeah, I had one of the guys give me the tour, when I, not too long after I started, I think.
Right.
And, maybe I actually didn't go back again at all. So, I guess I shouldn't act so surprised. But what is this? I mean, is it like an SCCM server or something? Why are you the guy?
No, it's not an SCCM server. It is what can I say? It is a server that is in a secured area of the data center. So you might imagine what sort of servers would be in a secured area of a data center.
Oh.
And it needs some hardware replacement.
I gotcha. It's your certificate authority. It's got your certificate. It's got your keys on it. You don't have to answer.
That is something you would want in a secured part of your data center.
That's I remember I went to what was it? A company called Baltimore Technologies, and they're not like a popular name many people would have heard of, but back in the early days of the security software industry, they were there from the beginning, and they were one of the short list of certificate authorities. So it's like VeriSign, and these were they were like VeriSign basically.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember during the tour, they show you where the key is. And we're talking about, when I say the key, I mean it's the key.
Right.
So every certificate is signed ultimately by this. Right. This string of text. That's sitting on a whatever inside this room, and it was a very, very secure room. Like there weren't machine guns, but it was a very secure room.
There weren't machine guns, but there were lasers that popped down from the ceiling.
There you go. That was cool.
And sharks with lasers.
Exactly. Sharks with lasers. So, let's see. Greg is in the chat room saying that he doesn't get containers yet. I am, all of a sudden, everybody is wanting to talk about containers. Like, in my industry and at my company, it's like the hot thing this week. Just past 2 weeks, I guess. So I am excited to hear about what Microsoft is doing there, because it's already important. Like it's starting to be a big deal. So I'm glad that Microsoft is not going to be left behind there. It'll be a good stuff. Alrighty. Well, actually, I wanted to talk to, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Actually, let me just say goodnight to everybody. And if you want to stop the stream, because I actually did want to ask you a question.
Yep. Good night, everybody.